Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Research Clinic podcast. It's Dr. Kris and today I am very, very pleased to have one of our great customers with us, Jodi DePorter. Hi, Jodi. How are you today?
Hey, good to see you.
Good to see you. So, I thought we're trying to do a few different podcasts with actually current patients and their journey and maybe things that we've done to help you with your health journey, I guess I would call it. And so today we were going to talk a little bit about the trim and fit with research protocol or program, maybe is the better word to use. So I thought maybe the best way kind of to start this was just maybe talk about your journey. And I wanted you to be part of this podcast, A, because I know the tremendous results that you've gotten, but B, I'm a little bit more aware of everything that you've been through because we work out together. Your husband Maury is our trainer, and your trainer as well, of course, and your husband. And so you're one of those unique patients, especially female patients, that I've watched over the last year or two, and I see how hard that you work out, and we discuss all the time eating habits. So I'm very aware that you were doing those things correctly, but yet I think you weren't 100% happy with your results from what you were doing. So maybe you could just kind of start the conversation with what you were experiencing before we started doing the trim and fit with research protocol.
Yeah. So for the last couple of years, I've been struggling probably since I was like 38, 39 to lose weight. I definitely noticed a change right then. I'm 44 now, I'll be 45 next month. So the last 4 to 5, 6 years has been kind of a struggle, and I think that maybe my metabolism slowed down. And I've been eating well. I say I eat well. I realize after going through this program that I do eat well, but I just ate too much for the most part, I would say. But one of the protocols that Maury likes to do with his clients is he recommends fasting. So I had done some fasting almost every day for 3 years. I fast usually 14, 15 hours. Usually from the night before until the next day around 12 or 1, kind of depending on the schedule. And I've done that for a long time, so that wasn't hard. I work out 3, 4 times a week. I play indoor soccer. We work out hard here. We lift a lot of weights. We do a lot of cardio and really difficult workouts. But I still was having a difficult time losing the weight. And actually, the last year or two, I think with everything going on in the world, just things slowed down, and I started putting on more weight. So by the time I hit, the fall of last year, I was pretty frustrated and looking for something or some way to get off. My goal was originally 10 to 15 pounds. I've lost a lot more than that, obviously, but
Mhm.
that was I would have been happy with that to begin with, just because I wanted to see the scale go down and not up. So
Yeah, and I think that, and I always say, and I hate to generalize, but I see so many ladies who are doing a lot of the right things, but they're not getting the optimal results. And as I always joke with the ladies, your husband or significant other, you can watch them try to lose 5 pounds and do it in a week.
hmm
Because as males, I do feel like most of the time it's metabolically easier to lose fat than it is for females, and especially after females have had pregnancies and births. I feel like the body's always kind of in this mode of trying to protect itself for reproduction and longevity. And after our discussions, I think that overall you had a very good diet. Was it a perfect diet? Of course not. I know pre-COVID, not as much during COVID, you traveled a lot, and I'm sure
hmm
like most of my patients, like myself, when I travel many times, my diets are not as strict as normal because
Right.
you're entertaining or being entertained, and it's a time to enjoy foods that were not always around. But by no means did you have this horrific diet. Like I say, and I know this because I'm around you so much, and I know that you were doing the right things in the gym because again I saw it, versus sometimes patients need a little help with with their exercise program. And then the other thing that you were doing, and you mentioned it briefly, is y'all are significantly involved in playing soccer. And, that is tremendous cardio that y'all would do multiple times a week. And despite all that, you saw yourself in a situation where you weren't losing the fat pounds, but we're still seeing the weight maybe go up a little bit because of COVID, and maybe the diets gets a little bit looser. But the other thing was, and you mentioned it, and obviously we agree with Maury, is that is about fasting. And I find fasting to be a very interesting topic. And as you know, we're huge proponents of fasting for so many different reasons. Some patients really, really respond metabolically to fasting, and the fat just falls off of them. I saw a lady yesterday that was the case. Doesn't really work out that much, doesn't really have a bad diet or a great diet, and she's lost 20 pounds over 6 months with fasting alone. But then others will lose a little bit but not as much, but they feel great and they do great, but it doesn't always work so much for the fatty metabolism. So I think that your story is very, very common. That is the busy mom who eats pretty decently, who doesn't drink a ton, who exercises hard, but just can't get some of those fat pounds off. So I believe we started the program with you around Thanksgiving. Would that be correct?
Yep.
Okay,
Right after.
so we're kind of at that 6+ month area with you, and what we're discussing mainly, and we're not going to go completely into the whole protocol. That's really for when you come in. But the big thing that we used with you was the semaglutide. And for those that have never heard of semaglutide is an FDA approved medication. Actually, it's a peptide, which, we've had lots of peptide discussions. My love for peptides,
Mhm.
but semaglutide is actually a peptide that's FDA approved for diabetes and weight loss. And it does some really cool stuff. And you can hopefully back me up on this in a minute, but it works on the brain, on the hunger center, to actually down regulate your hunger so that we're simply not hungry when it's time to eat. But it also has this amazing effect of making you full at the same time, so that when you do eat smaller amounts, you feel satisfied, so that you don't walk away from that. Like I always say, all of us have tried to eat less to lose weight. And what typically happens is we're hungry 30 minutes later and we're rummaging through the pantry. Then we start really grabbing foods that aren't good for us because our cravings kick in, and we start grabbing, sugary foods or fatty foods that maybe we shouldn't be doing. So semaglutide keeps our hunger under control, makes us feel full, but then also keeps our post eating or postprandial blood sugar spike under control, so that we have less insulin secretion, which then has a tremendous metabolic effect. So, if you could maybe just talk a little bit about what semi-glutide has done for you. We'll go into your results in a minute. Let's save that as the finale. But if you could just maybe talk about how you physically felt when you're on the good and the bad with semi-glutide.
Yeah, so I started taking it the day after Thanksgiving, which was a good time because I just, everybody eats a lot and overindulges on
Mm-hmm.
Thanksgiving, and the next day you feel kind of guilty. I started that day. I wasn't really sure if I would get results. I know that some of your other patients had, but I just felt like I had tried a lot of things and nothing really
You were
worked.
frustrated, right?
I was pretty frustrated, so I thought, well, hey, I'll try it. And like I said, I would have been happy losing 10 pounds, 10, 15 pounds.
And
And
where
it
was
took
your weight when you started, if you don't mind?
167.
And how tall are you?
5'6".
Okay. And what was your body fat? Do you remember?
27%.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
So
not horrible, but not where you want it for as hard as you're working out. Again, ladies, normal is 20 to 25 for females.
yeah.
We can go lower than that. That's just, being in great shape, but normal is 20 to 25.
Yeah, and most people would look at me, and if I said something about losing weight, they say, "Oh, you don't need to lose much weight." And I kind of felt the same way, but I knew on a scale I wasn't where I wanted to be, and I know it shouldn't be all about the scale, but it is for women. I mean, let's be honest,
Sure.
we look at the scale and we feel like we want to be in a different spot. But I started taking it, and I noticed it in about 10 days. And I remember it was kind of profound for me because I remember sitting down to eat. I was on a business trip and I took like 3 bites and I was like, I'm not hungry. And I'm always hungry. I'm always ready to eat,
Mhm.
I'm usually
Yeah, yeah,
fasting,
yeah.
and so when it's time to eat, it's time to eat. And I kind of noticed it, but I thought, is it the semaglutide, or what's going on? Maybe it's just that I was traveling, something was different, whatever. But what I really really noticed that for me was when I would eat or eat dinner, at night, and then after dinner was always my difficult time where I either
Mhm.
wanted something sweet or salty, and typically for me it's salty, but I would
Mhm.
still indulge in a piece of chocolate that turned into a half a bar of chocolate, whatever it would be.
Right, right.
It'd be dark chocolate, but still there was always still this like, oh, I need just a little something else.
Hmm.
And that completely went away, which was pretty big for me, because I got to go through the holidays not really indulging or having all those cravings. But to be able to sit down and eat a half of what I used to eat and be completely satisfied was really shocking to me. And even my husband said, "You used to eat as much as I did," which I didn't, but he would say that. But I started just eating far less. And then as that happened, I wasn't hungry or I was fuller longer or whatever it was. I started fasting longer. So instead of
Hmm.
going, 14, 16 hours, I was going 20. Sometimes I went, one meal a day was
Yeah, you
pretty
were doing a
phenomenal.
little bit of OMAD, right? One meal a
Yeah, I
day.
did OMAD, and it was, I'm not going to say it was easy, but it
Hmm.
was easier because I had done it before and kind of struggled. And, I had little hacks that I would do. I
Hmm.
basically just drink black coffee in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I drink carbonated water, kind of fills my stomach, kind of gets me past the
Sure.
hunger waves. And then I would go till dinner and eat a big salad and a piece of meat, usually a
Hmm.
piece of steak or chicken,
Hmm.
and that was it. And there was days where I, wanted more or felt hungry and had to get through it. It doesn't take all that away, but it definitely curbs the hunger and curbs the cravings, which I think for me was kind of big because I love chips and salsa, and I was just always someone who would snack at night, and
Yeah.
I just didn't even want to, which was even more cool, But and I started losing weight within as soon as that it kind of kicked in, and I started to feel it. I started losing weight right away, and the scale pretty much went down every other day. I was losing a pound or so. But I wasn't eating as much, I would say. I was still eating, decent amount of food. And fasting and coffee and water was kind of what I did. And then I worked out 3 or 4 times a week.
So, semaglutide does have a few side effects. Most of the time, we've had very few patients who have actually stopped semaglutide secondary to the side effects. I think that's because we do a good job of talking about the side effects, how to get through the side effects, and titrating from a low dose and slowly going up. The most common side effects with semaglutide, though, are GI related, typically nausea, constipation, reflux. Those are the three most common, with nausea being the most common. And sometimes a little fatigue, usually mid afternoon fatigue, is common. Did you experience any side effects with semaglutide of any significance?
I had a little bit of nausea. It was never like more than, it would be like moments of time. Like I would smell
Mm-hmm.
something like in a grocery store, kind of weird, but like you'd smell
Mm-hmm.
like the fish counter, and I would have kind of like a gag reflex. And a couple of times when I ate too much, I
Mm-hmm.
would have nausea. So I knew that, and I knew at the time I was eating more than I should.
Yeah.
And then eventually I would be like, oh, I don't feel very good. But I never, I didn't have really much for side effects, so that was kind of nice on for my part.
Yeah, and I do wanted to address the cravings aspect here in a second because I think that's one of the most amazing things about semaglutide. But when we find our patients who are getting nauseated, many times upon questioning, we find that it's always related to them eating too much. And they sit down and we can always eat through fullness if we choose to. We have to, one thing I tell my patients is I do believe in order to lose weight, fat pounds, I want to make sure we differentiate. And that's one of the things I love about your scan that we're going to show in a second is that you lost mainly only fat. And that's what we're trying to do. We want to maintain muscle mass. So not always is losing weight a good thing. We want to lose fat pounds. But, when the patients do sit down and special occasion or something like that and eat too much, that's typically when the nausea really gets triggered. And you're right, it's waves of nausea. It's not like I was nauseated for 3 days straight. I've yet to have anyone like that. It's like little moments of nausea. And in the beginning, I got nausea as well from semaglutide. Reflux is really the major side effect that I have with
Okay.
semaglutide. And it's manageable, but we have to do a few things for that. And so, but the biggest thing that I like, well, I'm not going to say biggest. One of the things that I love about semaglutide though is cravings. And so, like for me, when I'm on semaglutide, my weakest moment is when I walk in the door from coming from work to home. Because usually I fast as well, just like you. Sometimes I do OMAD. Most of the time, I try to have a light lunch. I eat nothing in the afternoon for the most part. So many times I'll walk in, be a little bit hungry, and it's chips and salsa usually at our house. And I know that, it's just wasted calories and I'm not getting anything out of that, but it's really a hard thing to break. Before you know it, the bag of chips is open. I'm only going to have two, and then you have 20. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
And so I found that to be really nice that those cravings, sugar cravings, snacking cravings go away. And I know you're not a big drinker, but one of the things I've been amazed is also my alcohol cravings for my patients really, really cuts down. I've had multiple patients that were drinking way too much that come back and say, wow, I just don't want to drink. Like I've gone a week and haven't had a glass of wine. People that were drinking a bottle of wine a night. And as I always joke, routine alcohol intake and weight loss just don't go together. If a patient isn't willing to control their alcohol usage, most likely I'm going to be unsuccessful in getting the fat off. It just wrecks metabolism. It causes us to eat poorly because we've been drinking. So, we try to make sure that our patients have controlled drinking. Let's look at your scan.
Okay.
So here you are. Can you see that on your side?
Yeah. Yep.
All right, cool. So so this actually cuts off because it only compares so many scans apart. So we're going to have patients understand that there was a prior scan, but this is good enough. Your first scan here was 12.6 of 21, and you were 158 pounds at that point. I'm rounding, and 26.4% body fat. Do you remember what your original scan said on weight and body fat?
165.9, I believe, was my original scan.
So 165.9, and you said 27% body fat. Was that what you?
27. Yeah.
Okay. So you can see just in the first couple of weeks, you had already lost like 8 pounds.
Hmm.
And today, this was 525. So last week, you scanned in at 131 pounds.
Yeah.
So, 34, 35 pounds of weight lost. And what I really found was cool is if you look at this, your muscle mass was 65 pounds and you still are maintaining 63 pounds.
Mhm.
So, you've only lost 2, 3 pounds of muscle through this whole process,
Yeah.
but yet your body fat has gone from the original scan of 27 down to under 15% of 14.6. The
Incredible.
other incredible, yeah, absolutely incredible. But the other thing and by the way, if anybody's wondering what is this is our in-body scan. um as any of my patients know, a scale, just a plain old scale, doesn't mean much to me. It just tells me we're losing weight, but it doesn't tell me at all what our body composition is doing. And what I really like about the in-body that we use is that it also gives visceral fat. And visceral fat is that fat around our organs. It's the most dangerous fat. Your visceral fat, unfortunately, the in-body that I have doesn't compare visceral fat, but do you remember what your visceral fat was when you started?
Yes, it was at an 8.
Yeah, so normal is below 10, but I really want visceral fat 5 to 6 or less. So an 8 to a 3 is amazing, and you rarely see visceral fats down into the twos and threes, because we have to have some fat. Like, I mean, this is just to me. When I look at yours, the visceral fat is probably what I'm most amazed by is going
Yeah.
from an 8 to a 3, because we know that, yes, you look in the mirror and you're going to be much happier because your body composition has gone from a 27% body fat down to a 14.6. but as your doctor with this journey, the visceral fat is what makes me the happiest, because I know that we're improving your health. And that's what's most important. We're lowering your chance of inflammatory disease like heart, strokes, cancer risk, diabetes, all those things, which to me is absolutely most important. I want my patients to look in the mirror and be happy, but health is our most important factor. So anyway, I was just wanted to really show this to maybe anyone out there who's really struggling with the inability to lose weight, because I truly believe what we do with the Trim and Fit with the research clinic is different than any other program that is in our area. We're actually kind of getting to the root cause of why you're not losing weight. We're basically, all we're doing is helping the body to start using fat for fuel again. And once it starts, it's a crazy momentum that builds in our patients. We're routinely seeing females losing 20 to 40 pounds. I mean, every week we're seeing these type of results. And then there's an interesting discussion like that you and I had the other day that I'm going to share, and that is, where do I go from here, right?
Yeah, right,
Because
exactly.
you don't need to lose any more weight. You don't need to lose any more fat. I mean, if you do, that's because you just want to, and maybe you want to be in a fitness competition or something like that, but there's no real reason why your body fat needs to be lower than it is. It's actually extremely healthy, even for a guy. 15 to 20, so you have a very great, very good body fat. And I had talked to you the other day about, I would like to try to get those 3 pounds of muscle back,
Hmm.
because muscle is the currency of aging, in my opinion. And as you start to approach your mid 40s, and before you know it, you're going to be 50. I hate to say it because I'm there. We want to make sure that we maintain muscle mass, and you have a good muscle mass, but we want to maintain it. So things that we talked about is when you reach goal, we could continue on semaglutide. Semaglutide has tremendous positive effect on slowing down neural degeneration. So it's good for the brain. It's actually really good for the heart. So we might decide and go with a very low dose of semaglutide, just enough to control cravings, but let the appetite come back up a little bit, so that you could enjoy a little more food. And hopefully that because we do need protein to help build muscle. There are other peptides that we can discuss down the road to switch to, or patients can fly solo. And what I mean by that is like, what, I've really learned how to control some of these things, and I feel like I can do this now. I don't have to take anything. That's certainly fine as well. I just caution my patients, if you start to gain the weight back, don't let yourself get back to 27% body fat before you restart
Right.
something. So there's lots of options there. So anyway, I just thank you so much for joining us today. I just wanted to show your journey just a little bit to any potential patients or current patients that maybe are just frustrated about not losing the body fat that they want to lose. So, um, anyway, anything you wanted to add that we haven't talked about, Jodi?
I would just like to say that I really appreciate you guys talking to me about it, and telling me about this, because like I said, I was very frustrated, and I honestly in the beginning was skeptical. I really was.
Sure.
I thought I've tried everything. And now if I looked at my diet, I will say, if I looked at my diet 6 months ago and said, could I cut this and this and this out? Yeah, there was certain things that, I like lattes, everybody
Yeah,
does,
yeah,
or
yeah.
the chips and salsa or the snacking at night. And when I got on the program, I decided that if I'm gonna, take the time and spend the money, that I'm gonna do it. And so I got serious about it. And in about 12 weeks, I was pretty much to where I needed to be in 12
Mhm.
weeks. And um, I've been able to maintain it and kind of stick with it. And it's been fun. It's been exciting, I guess, for a woman who's struggled for so long to be able to really see the weight come off. And I just really appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
Well, we appreciate you, and we love seeing your success. Let me ask you this as a follow up question, though. So, yes, you could have done some of this on your own, in my opinion. Okay. We can all eat a little less and eat a little better. But I do believe that you would have gotten some results, but there's no way you would have gotten these results.
I
And
agree.
that's because your metabolism fights you the whole time. Okay. But my question actually is, did you find the losing of the weight to be difficult in any way? And what I mean by difficult is just mentally difficult. Or do you feel like, not to put words in your mouth, but this made it not so difficult?
I would say that this made it not so difficult. I mean, there was definitely days where I was like, I really want to eat, or I'm hungry, or just,
Mhm.
you kind of eat the same foods, and that's just how I was. I felt like I had better success if I just stuck with the same kind of foods. So that's what I did. Salads and meat is basically what I was eating.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
plenty of fats too. I should probably say that I ate avocado and eggs and bacon and butter. That's kind of how my diet has always been. But I
Mhm.
think that helps satiate me. I would say like if I did splurge on a latte, like I do like to do sometimes, that
Mhm.
I would feel kind of sick. I think from the because I put heavy cream in it, and that was a little bit probably too much fat or too heavy for me.
Yeah.
With the semaglutide, that was like the one of the things that I would drink it and indulge and enjoy it, and then kind of feel sick to my stomach. Um, but actually, to lose the weight like this, I'm just really happy about it. When I got to 150, which is what originally I thought when I started it, if I could just get to 150, I'd be happy. And
Yeah.
then I got to 150 right around Christmas time, and I thought, well, it's only been like a month. I think I'm just going to keep going. And and looking at, if you Google stuff and look at what should I be for my height and weight, and 135 was what most of the charts said. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna try to get to 135, and if I can get there, I'd be happy. And I'm below that now, but like you said, I'd like to gain a couple of pounds of muscle and gain some of the muscle back that I lost. But I, in no way did I like to a point. Did I ever think I'd get to a point in my life ever when I would say I need to put on a few pounds? Like I never
Yeah.
thought I would
It's a
get to
great
that
problem
point.
to have, right?
Yeah, I
Uh,
actually said it the other day, and I thought this is really weird. I've never said this. I've never
Yeah,
said I
yeah,
need to
yeah.
put a few
That
pounds
is a
on.
great problem to have whenever we tell you you need to go gain a little weight.
Yeah.
We just, you have great muscle mass, as we've already talked about. It's just, I kind of have two populations of females, and those are the ones that need to lose fat, and those that are so thin that they're too thin and they need to gain muscle, because sarcopenia is real. Sarcopenia is the medical term for loss of muscle mass as we age. And so the biggest thing is I don't want my ladies becoming frail ladies as they age, because that's what typically gets them there. That's what gets the thin bones and loss of muscle mass, or loss of muscle mass leads to thin bones, and they end up being this frail little old lady, which cuts our life short and changes our quality of life tremendously. So, well, thank you so much for doing this. You were great. I really appreciate it. I hope that, again, maybe someone's going to watch this and give them optimism that this is different than what they've experienced. I want my patients to understand this isn't like phentermine. We don't do that. Here's something just to cut your appetite, and we know those things have a lot of side effects, and most of the time do not work. We're really trying to set our patients up for long-term success. So, we're more than happy if anybody sees this, if this relates to you in any way, just email us, or you can go on our website, hit the request consultation button, or you can just give us a call at 817-599-9902. One of my staff members will be happy to talk to you about it. Come in and see myself or one of my providers. And if this feels right for you at that point, we'll get you started if you qualify. If not, it'll be just really, hopefully, useful information for down the road. So thanks again, Jodi. I appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.